What's going on, y'all? It's Taylor, and today I'm joined by two incredible songwriters, Marc Beeson and Lee Thomas Miller. Welcome to 106.7. How are we feeling today?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So I think I just mentioned to y'all, we play the best country from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s here at y'all 106.7, so a lot of which you guys have written. So I'm just very honored to be here with you today. And I got to ask as my first question, combined, how many number one songs do you guys have?
I've had 7.
I've had 3.
So we have 10, and we have plenty of top 20 charted singles, which we're going to dive into that.
And a whole bunch that didn't chart.
Yeah. So does each number?
Do we have to talk about that?
But we don't have to talk about that.
How does each number one feel? Does it feel like the first time? Does it keep getting better?
It feels like the first time. It feels fearfully like the last. It's just so hard. I mean, it's so many things have to line up to go number one. I mean, some of the songs that have changed my life stopped short of number one too. So it's just every time you hear something on the radio, it's a miracle.
And you just want to get one more every time that you you get one.
It's the greatest drug in the world.
Yeah. Now, you guys are both signed to Smack Songs. Smack Songs is a Nashville-based music publishing, management, and artist development powerhouse led by Grammy Award winners Shane McAnally and Josh Osborne. Smack is home to some of the industry top songwriters, artists, and producers. So do you guys ever write together?
Me and him?
Yeah.
We wrote a
Couple
couple days
days
ago. Yeah.
Yeah? And is it normally you two? Do we have a third in the room?
We had a third that day, Alan Shamblin, who's not too shabby, a Hall of Famer. And we
Depends. I mean, every day's kind of its own thing. Yeah. You know, a lot of times we're with artists.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Do y'all go way back? How is this relationship? When did you guys first meet?
years ago.
Yeah, you know, Music Row is funny. The whole town just kind of, or Music Row, the music community just kind of knows everybody. It's funny. People will ask that how long have you known each other, and you go, I don't know, decades. I mean, you know, it's like to some degree, and then and then you kind of run through a period where you spend time together and you write, and then your paths go different ways. But everybody's kind of in the same little sandbox together.
Mm-hmm. It's a small town.
I moved here in '91.
I moved here in '90, so we've been here for.
And where's home for both of you guys? Home? Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in a farm town in Illinois, and then my family moved out west when I was in high school. So I actually lived in L.A. for a while before I moved here in '90, and oftentimes I wish I had just come straight here.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know that much about Nashville at the time, you know. And part of being here was my education in country music, and it was through being a songwriter and working with people like Lee and a lot of people that mentored me when I first came here that taught me the craft. And, you know, and being in that environment, you listen. You know, people would talk about a record and you go listen to it. I mean, this is before any of the streaming services or anything, so you literally had to go like buy the record or hope to hear it on the radio. And it's, you know, that part's different now. I mean, the people still are trying to do some research. I have to say most of the people I write with are way younger than I am. I mean, Lee is way younger than me. And but I've learned so much from younger writers, and they love hearing stories about the '90s, about the difference in the environment of writing then as compared to now. And and Lee could really speak well about that whole topic. But you know, it's been a great ride. I feel like I've lived. Well, I have lived here longer than anywhere else. So now I feel like I'm kind of from Nashville.
Well, I kind of want to go back to the beginning a little bit, and Marc, we'll start with you. We need to give a proper introduction of some of these accolades that you have. So, Marc has had songs recorded by Tim Mcgraw, Blake Shelton, Jason Aldean, Garth Brooks, Keith Urban, Martina McBride, Reba, and the list goes on and on. He has won 12 ASCAP awards, including Country and Pop Song of the Year for his number one hit, When She Cries, Restless Heart, which we play all the time. I love that song. You co-wrote Billy Currington's number one single, We Are Tonight, Josh Turner's number one single, Hometown Girl, and you also have several cuts coming up. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But I do want to go back to the beginning. You guys were talking about when you first came to Nashville. Do you remember the moment when you decided, I'm going to do this?
Well, I actually came here to be an artist originally. and somebody from Warner Brothers, Nashville, the record company, saw me play a little club in L.A. and asked me if I would come and visit town for a week, and she had me come, and that was in the fall of '89, and I was not prepared for the culture of writing here, and she went ahead and set me up with like 5 writes that week. So every day I was with somebody else, and every one of them was a great writer, and one of them in particular, Robert Byrne, who I lucked out meeting, ended up producing a record on me on B&A. That kind of set the tone for me, and that was my first introduction to truly the culture of songwriting. And I just, I had to scratch the artist itch, and I don't have any regrets. I made 3 different records on 3 different labels, and that never amounted to anything. But I learned a lot from that process. I met a bunch of people at radio that I didn't even understand that side of it outside of turning the radio on, and it was great. It was a great education, but in the end, I became what I'm supposed to be, and that's just a songwriter. So
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like with a lot of people moving to town today, it's like the first question they get asked, are you an artist or a writer? It's almost like you have to kind of be either or, but at the end of the day, it's all art, in my opinion. So
yeah,
I think you found your home.
Yeah.
Now, Lee, we'll go to you for just a moment. Let's see here. You have won both a CMA and an ACM award for Song of the Year with In Color, as recorded by Jamey Johnson. You're Gonna Miss This, recorded by Trace Adkins, won Song of the Year at both the ASCAP and NSAI Awards, and Single of the Year at the CMA Awards. I'm Still a Guy, Brad Paisley. I Just Want to Be Mad, Terry Clark, Southern Girl, Tim McGraw, and many more songs that you have written. So take us back. Do you remember the moment that you decided to be a songwriter?
I grew up on a tobacco farm in a little town in Kentucky, only about 200 miles from here. So it was close enough that I could kind of come and look around, and I was smart enough to know that I was in over my head. This was the greatest musicians in the world. I started playing in bars when I was 14 or 15 and had a little band in high school, and got out of high school and went, wanted to come here. The plan was to come here. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to play music. So I went to college, but back home at Eastern Kentucky University, and got a bachelor's degree in music theory and classical composition. So I studied Mozart so I could come play Merle Haggard. People would say, what does it mean to have a degree in music theory? And I would say, it means I'm overqualified to play this bar. But all of that was just trying to be a better musician, to come and survive in the world of the greatest musicians. So I came thinking I'd be a player, thinking I'd ride a bus, and that's kind of a long story that led to a moment of trying to be a singer and auditioning for, I was in a band and trying to get a deal. And trying to get a record deal here led to writing every day, which led to writing with better people. And there was a publisher who was super successful at a company called Hamstein, which they had made their name as the ZZ Top people. And then Clint Black, that was their introduction to Nashville, and then Little Texas. And the guy that ran that company ended up being kind of my absolute, mentor, game changer, the first guy that believed in me. And in the 90s, he says, I don't think you're an artist, but I think you could be a songwriter. If you'll quit doing everything else and just write, I'll give you a publishing deal. And that changed everything. I felt like that was in September of 1996. That was the moment that I realized that I was going to be a songwriter, and that I've done nothing but write songs since then. But I would have been, I don't know. I was a kid when I decided I'm going to play music. My mother called it the curse, because once I went down that path, there was no coming back. There was never a plan B. And Nashville was so intimidating. And I look back 33 years ago and think, what was I thinking? It was so scary. I was so not good enough. People say I'll go when I'm good enough. Then you're never coming. Okay? You're never going to be good enough. I'm not good enough to be here. Holy cow! I could introduce you to musicians that'll make you go fill out an application at at Home Depot this afternoon. You're not good. We're not good enough. This town is so intimidating. Yeah. But then somehow here we are decades later, and we're still.
We won't leave.
Yeah.
We just won't leave.
Well, that's the thing about songwriting. I think there's no ego. It's all about the song, So to hear, oh, you're not an artist, or oh, I'm not the best. There's so many other people. It's the song speaks for itself at the end of the day.
Be it an artist, or be it a guitar player, or I don't know, a songwriter. If you can survive in this town and still have a big ego, you're a sociopath.
Yeah,
because they are taking your knees out every day. I've got one of my dearest friends in the business that says, Nashville is not that tough if you can get past the first 40 years. I'm like, holy cow, that's hysterical. Because, it is. People will say, you've had success, you're humble. And I'm like, humble? They've said no 2,000 times since January. It's a no business.
Yeah, that's exactly.
When they say no, we go, are you sure? When they say yes, we go, are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, let's double check that. That didn't sound right.
Do the no's still hurt a little bit?
It's terrible. Yes.
How about you?
I don't know. You have the moment where you're just kind of used to it. You just kind of catch it in a place.
You're numb.
That you're used to kind of catching it, and I don't know. You're never really that numb.
Yeah.
And but I feel like it's really important to kind of control what you can control, because so much of what we do we don't control, outside of the room anyway. Just trying to write the best song is the ultimate control. But then, I've always liked to go pitch songs myself. A lot of writers won't do it because of the no's.
I don't. I can't take it.
I know, and that's okay. Honestly, when I'm in the room, I just figured, okay, my publisher, if they're going to go play songs at a record company and they're going to play 5 songs, and they got 20-something writers, the chances of me getting even one of the songs that they're going to pitch are probably slim. But if I go myself, I can play 5. So now I may have to hear no 5 times instead of once, but I feel like there's something to be learned from it. And at the end of it, I stopped even thinking about pitching particular songs for particular artists, because everything changes so much. So I go in with 5 songs that I love, and then they could say no, and it's not, your song's not good enough. It's, I just don't hear it for this person or that person or whatever. Or sometimes they'll say yes, and it'll be the most unlikely person you ever thought. And if I hadn't gone, they wouldn't have heard that song. And then I'll say, when I'm done with the song part, whether they say yeses or no's, I ask them, what are you really passionate about right now? And a lot of times people at labels will really respond. They'll kind of light up, because you're not really asking anything of them anymore. You're just like, what are you into? And they'll say, well, we got this new guy. We love this guy. They'll play me a couple of songs, and I'll find out something that I wouldn't have seen on a pitch sheet or whatever, and had a moment to kind of have a human moment with somebody at a record company, and it's not about yeses and no's. It's just about music, and I feel like it's kind of cathartic to do that. And you get the no's hurt, but you get used to it, because it's just the nature of it, and it does make the yeses awesome, and you got to celebrate every little bit victory, because even if they say yes, that's just the first stage. They'll say, well, we're going to hold it, but then it's got to get sent to the artist or the producer or the management company or whatever, and it's got to go through all these things. And like Lee said, a hit song is really an act of God. There's so many stars have to line up that you cannot control, and really nobody can actually control it. It goes from this hands to these hands to these hands, and then ultimately, if you're lucky enough to get enough traction at radio where they start getting feedback from the audience, then it can get a life of its own. And that's pretty fun on the rare occasion that happens. It's happened more for Lee than it has for me, but
Waiting on lightning to strike.
Yeah.
But when it does,
yeah. And you don't control it. You're just waiting.
And I think that's very educational. What you touched on for aspiring songwriters is you don't write particular, like, oh, this sounds like a Jason Aldean song, or this sounds like you just write a good song, and it's going to find the home that it's meant to find. And
I've never been good at aiming it. Like, you have an idea and you think, let's write this for Keith Urban. And aim it at Keith Urban. 100% of the time, Keith Urban,
Mm-hmm.
or 5 gatekeepers before Keith Urban said that doesn't sound like Keith Urban.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The gatekeeper. So you guys have been around. I'm sure that you're friends with a lot of these artists or other writers. Have you ever, or do you ever just say, like, text it directly, like, oh, this sounds like, that'd be good for my buddy to record, or,
Sometimes, but I think, when we speak to kids, people don't want to come. It's like a lot of times, and it's so hard. People are trying to break in, and they don't understand if they don't live here why it's so hard to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is whole education about how being here is so important. You have to live in the culture. You have to live here and be in the culture to really understand what the target is. You're living in Iowa and you think you're writing a modern country song. No, you're not. By the time, whatever you're listening to on the radio right now, the new songs, that's about 6 months behind.
Mm-hmm.
We're writing a little bit different right now for today's cuts, right? It just changes. And we'll say, I'll say this a lot. I'll say, okay, you're writing a bunch of songs, and maybe you're to the point, maybe you've moved here, and maybe you're just getting no's in the doors, and you're not getting anywhere. And I'm like, the biggest difference between me and you is, you're about 5 people removed from Kenny Chesney. There are 5 people saying no to your songs before Kenny Chesney, and it's a no. Kenny Chesney says no to my song. It's still no. Mm-hmm. But Kenny Chesney is saying no. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so your odds are a little bit greater, because you're closer to the target.
Because his ears got to hear it.
It takes a long time to get to the point where you're getting the right person listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I have a single out now on Tim called One Bad Habit, and I've been trying to get a Tim Mcgraw cut.
It's a selfless plug, really.
Since
it's climbing the charts,
there
man.
there is a story.
It's climbing the charts.
And the story is, and it's showing how actually unconnected I am, really, because I wrote it with a couple of buddies, one of them being Tony Lane, and we had written this song and we loved it, and we did kind of a demo of it and finished it up, and I've been trying to get a Tim cut ever since I got it. Since he broke in '93, I've been trying to get a Tim cut. It's been like one of those mountains, like I can't even get in the foothills, and it's crazy. I just thought, man, it's just one of those things where it's just not meant to be, and I never had the right song at the right time or whatever. Anyway, week after we wrote it, demoed it, Tony sends Aaron Esai sent me a text. And it was a copy of a text, and it was from Tim saying, I love this song. And so I'm looking at this going, Tony sent it to Tim, sent the demo directly to Tim, and Tim said, I love this song. And I thought, geez, look how easy that is. And literally, a few weeks later, he sent Tony the cut. And he sent it to us, and I didn't have to do anything. And then at one point, months went by, and he put an album out and wasn't on that. And I thought, it's just not going to happen. And then he put out that little EP before Christmas last year, and it was on there. And I thought, oh well, that's nice. That's nice. He had some extra songs, and he put this out. And I know it's a different concept and stuff, but. And a few weeks after that, Tony sends us a text, and it's a copy from Tim saying, "I think this is the next single." And I'm just going, "Geez, this was so easy after all." But I mean, truly, that to me is a miracle, because I had no idea, for one, that Tony even knew Tim, and you're still going in there like we went in the other day, and you're digging and you're trying to write something that people can't say no to, and every once in a while, every once in a blue moon, you have a song that kind of finds a lane, and everybody kind of gets out of the way.
But it's all deniable. It's funny. After the fact, it seems so obvious, but every good thing that has ever happened to me, somebody was laying on a railroad track trying to stop it. I remember we had You're Gonna Miss This, and it was so fun because as far as the charts go, it was easy. It once it came out, it just went. It did everything, and then it won. It was nominated for everything and won almost everything. It was great. It was magical. It was so fun. And I remember a reporter saying in an interview, I did 50 interviews, and we went to the Grammys. We did all the stuff, and I remember this reporter saying, "The day you wrote it, did you know it was undeniable?" And I laughed, and I said, "Undeniable? Trace Adkins hated it."
Really?
Trace hated it. His producer loved it. They cut it kind of against Trace's wishes, maybe an extra song on the session. And then they come in to do vocals for the whole session, and they get to that song, and Trace says, "I'm not putting a vocal on that. That was a mistake." Quote, and Trace has told me this, quote, "No one's going to care about that song." So the producer, Frank Rogers, God bless him, said, "Would you humor me? Just let me get a vocal." And Trace had somewhere to be. And he said, "Okay, I will sing it from the top to bottom as many times as you can record it in 20 minutes, and then I'm leaving." So he did. He went in and just sang it top to bottom. Didn't fix anything, didn't redo anything, sang words wrong, and never corrected it. Today the words are wrong because he just gave him, because it was never going to come out. And they took what he had, got the best of the takes that they had. They picked a song called "Got My Game On" as the single and discarded us. And then Trace went off to do The Celebrity Apprentice, which was going to be a taping for months. The single died at 66. And I get a call, and they said you're going to miss this out as a time filler until they can figure out what they want to do with the project. And nothing says raising 4 kids like a time filler, right? There was no passion, no belief. And probably was my fastest climbing single, took everybody by surprise. Also, the producers of The Apprentice thought that Trace was just going to be a dumb hillbilly and they'd have fun with him and he'd get kicked off a couple of weeks. But it turned out that he became the show. And so he kept winning and kept winning and kept winning and kept winning. And the song kept climbing and kept climbing. And it gets down to Trace and another guy, Piers Morgan. The finals of Celebrity Apprentice. That was going to be a live show on whatever network television it was, CBS or whatever. And it was on a Thursday. On the morning that they were going to air the live finale of Celebrity Apprentice, "You're Going to Miss This" slipped into number 1. And that night, ladies and gentlemen, here to sing the number 1 song in the country, Trace Adkins. Boom. "You're Going to Miss This." We're number 1. All the stuff happens. We're at all the awards. We're doing all the stuff. And he won.
None of which you can control.
Nobody could control. There was... It's like you were never could just breathe because it was like you kept going, this isn't going to happen. And then CMA Awards, Single of the Year, "You're Going to Miss This." And Trace Adkins walks on stage and just shakes his head and says, "I know nothing about the music business. I swore nobody would care about this song." He owned it. He owned it the whole time. Then the reporter says, "Did you know it was undeniable?" I said, "Buddy, it was a bloody war."
Oh my gosh. You gave me chills with that story when you were saying that. That's incredible. Like,
it's funny, we do songwriter shows all the time, and it's like I'm watching people, mothers cry, and I'm just laughing, going, the odds that you ever heard this song were so slim. And if he hadn't cut it, nobody would have cut it, because the reason Trace decided he didn't want to do it is because it's not a young theme. It's not, look, country music is always, you're aiming at teenagers.
Honky tonk badonkadonks.
You're riding around in your truck with your hot young thing with your toes on the dash. That's what they all want to be.
Yeah. So what does Trace say about the song now?
Oh, he's wonderful. And we've done all these things. It's been honored at so many things, or there'll be some, and we'll ask him to come sing it for us. And he's always a yes. The NSAI honored the top 50 songs of the year at the Ryman, and I said, "Will you come sing it with me?" And Trace came and sang it with me at the Ryman. I mean, he loves it and laughs about it, but he never denied. Like he'll tell you right now that he completely missed it.
That's so great. I got to know which lines were sang incorrectly or different from the original lyric.
The bridge where it says the whole story goes, and then the plumber's there fixing something, the water heater, and the kids are raising. One kid's crying, one kid's screaming, and she keeps apologizing. He said, "That's all right. They don't bother me. I got two babies of my own. One's 36 and one's 33." Trace said, "One's 36 and one's 23." Which begs the question, what's up with the ages of your kids? This is why we would have never written it like that.
I've
right?
never
it's
thought
not
about
that. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's not normal. That's a big gap, right?
Yeah.
And when Frank was playing me the cut, because he was just like, I got vocals, but I had to kind of Frankenstein it, which just meant he didn't fix anything. We just got what we got, and I pieced it together, and I created a vocal out of what he had. But he used the word Frankenstein, right? And there was a melody change, too. There was a melody change that was a little bit more poppy, and Trace didn't like it. So he simplified it. And that didn't bother me because what Trace did sounded like Trace. But I'm thinking the word Frankenstein, and I'm listening all the way through the song, and I'm going, this is really freaking good, man. I'm just like, this sounds, because Trace is an incredible singer, but this is incredible, man. Holy cow. One's 36, one's 23. Wait, what?
Hold up, rewind.
You got me to the goal line and you dropped the ball. That's terrible, right? And it's funny. Nobody ever said anything. It was never mentioned ever. It's still never been mentioned.
Did you say anything to Frank?
No.
Yeah.
No, I never. Because it didn't matter. I mean, it was like, it is what it is. I thought it was a terrible mistake. I thought it was, even today when I hear it, it's a little cringy.
It hurts a little,
well, because look, we write a lot of songs, and look, we aren't artists. We aren't running a corporation and selling merch, and we write songs, notes and words. So if it's just me and him writing a song, and the artist isn't there, every word has been considered, right? There is a reason. We may be wrong, or we may be dumb, but it's not an accident. So for something as big as the age of a kid, it's like we've discussed it. We've looked at all the options. And inevitably an artist they'll change a little something. They'll just be maybe nothing that big.
It'll stand out to you, though.
Yeah, and you'll go, that's wrong, and I'll tell you what's wrong. If that was right, we would have said that. Yeah. It has never caused a problem. But every time I hear it, I'll go,
That 20-minute vocal, he had to do what he had to do that day, So speaking of your incredible songs, is there one song that you both have written that's like your favorite or that holds the most significance to you?
I have a couple. There's one in particular that Alan Shamblin and I wrote years ago. And Pat Green recorded it. And it was the song, I loved that song so much. Alan and I it was kind of weird. We had we had booked a couple of days. It was in December. And we decided, let's just do 4 days. Let's just pick these 4 days and and at the time, kind of, he and I, neither one of us kind of really had a lot going on. And we were supposed to write with Martina McBride on the first day. And I had emailed her a couple times, and she'd emailed me back. We had set it up, and she had recorded a song of mine years before, and that's how I had met her. Phones are ringing all over town. And she just said, I'm not comfortable with in writing. I don't know. And I said, look, we just want you to come in with us, and we're not expecting you to suddenly, turn into, Paul Simon or something. we just sit and we talk. That's how we start songs. We talk about what's going on in our lives, and a lot of the ideas come out of that. And that's just what we're talking about. And we'll just kind of nudge something along, and you're such a great singer. You know what your instincts are melodically and that type of thing. And we just really wanted to. I had a lot of respect for her, maybe just because I had met her a few times and I knew how hard she had worked. And then the last day that morning, she sent me another email and she said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And she said, I would much rather record a song that you and Alan write that I love than to go in and intrude on this right. And so so we wrote this song. And Alan had been at church a couple weeks before, and in the middle of the sermon, he said the preacher had said, I'm tired of hearing about what everybody's against. I want to hear about what you're for. And I just thought that was such a profound thought. And we spent 4 days writing What I'm For. And it was maybe the most enjoyable write I've ever had. We went down we chased every lead you could get on it. I think we wrote like 17 verses. And then, like kids, we had like all this paper, and we'd written all these verses out, and we cut each verse up so that we could put them out on a table and spread everything out on a table, because we couldn't figure out what fit, and we were literally like puzzled going, well, that verse fits with this and this and this. And we picked one verse to be the chorus, and then we had these other verses, and that's how we wrote the song. And I love that song so much. I feel like that was a day where the angels really came down for us. Mm. And Pat did it, and he sang it great, and it nothing really ever happened. But it got some airplay in Texas, and for some reason, every dang artist in Nashville ever since heard that version of the song, and they won't cut it. I have tried to get that song cut
because it's a Texas song.
I mean, year after year after year, we've tried to get that thing cut. I mean, it's been on hold a few times, and then somebody will go, "Oh, wait, yeah, Pat Green cut that, so we can't do it," and that's been really frustrating.
What's the name of it?
It's called What I'm For, and I love that one. I love that song. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. That's kind of one that's got some ache to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And crazy to think that even Martina McBride can psych herself out sometimes, an incredible vocalist, and she's still saying, I don't think, I can do this. I think we all have our strengths. There's melody people, lyric people, vocalist, and
the writing room is intimidating.
It takes a team.
Yeah, it can be. And I honestly don't think that it was I don't think she chickened out or anything. I just think that she just wanted to stay in her lane. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she had a process. She used to listen to hundreds and hundreds of songs to find the 10, mm-hmm. and which I loved. I mean, I don't even think artists do that anymore now. They are not intimidated about walking into rooms and writing. No, that's for sure.
I watched her speak at the Ryman. I think it was last year, and she was saying that even all the success she's had, if she were to come on the scene today, she doesn't think that she'd get airplay on country radio, and it's just crazy to see how music is constantly evolving and changing for someone of Martina's status, to say that. So, Lee, how about you? What's the song that holds the most weight? I know it's an impossible question, but is there one that maybe you hear back and it just tugs at your heartstrings every time?
It's hard to separate the successful ones from, you write a lot of stuff that you're emotional about the day you write it, and it may be, profound, and then something, works, and, if it's on the radio, it's hard for those not to be your favorite. In Color is special because it's so autobiographical about my grandfather. If you saw Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, that was my grandfather. He survived Omaha Beach, and it's very much that song. And then we have, as we go around the country doing songwriter shows, I have people, it's very common for them to come up and tell me that their grandfather left it in the will for that song to be sang at the funeral. So I get that from them. I get it from soldiers. I get it from military brass. You hear a lot of that. Then there's a song that no one's ever heard that, like him with Tim McGraw, George Strait was everything. Holy cow, George Strait. And I just worshipped him. And I spent just most of my career almost getting a George Strait cut, And no cut. And then my oldest son, when he was a teenager, middle school, he went through this terrible depression. Very dark. Just the scariest, darkest thing we'd ever gone through. And I kind of scribbled down, I had an idea, and I just kind of wrote it about him, just a verse and a chorus, and kind of set it to the side. And then one day I was with a Dean Dillon, who there would be no George Strait if there wasn't Dean Dillon, and we had written some little dumb tempo song that we thought sounded like radio, that no one ever cared about. And he said, you got anything else? And I really wasn't even thinking a lot. It was Dean Dillon, and I wanted to impress him, and so I ran it by him. And he said, "Why didn't you lead with that?" I'm like, "I don't know how good it is." And I was too close to it. And so we finished it, and I didn't think much about it. And it was a few weeks later, he goes back and says, "George loves it." I said, "Oh, so okay, we'll see." And so then he says, "George cut it." I'm like, "George Strait cut it?" And, yeah. Wow. And I was so, first of all, a lot could still happen. It could still go away. And I was in the middle of a million other things and didn't really take it serious. And then I get a call from the producer and says, "You want to come hear it?" And I'm like, "What? Do you want to hear George Strait cut?" Yeah. And so.
Tony?
No, it was Chuck Ainley.
Oh.
Tony didn't do that. It was the last record.
Oh, okay.
Chuck Ainley. And again, I don't remember what's going on, why I was so distracted. But I walked in, and they hit play, and George Strait sang me a song about my son. And it was paralyzing. It's like my whole career circled back to that moment, and I was like, holy crap, it was so right on the nose about my kid. And then they called and said, George is going to do an album release party. He's never done one. He'll be there. Oh. And so Dean wasn't there. It was just me. And so they said, when your song comes on, come in the control room. You can sit at the console with George and listen to your song. And we were drinking whiskey. So we had a glass of whiskey, and me and George Strait sat. And before they played it, I leaned over to him and told him what the song was about. And he was so touched. And we had this conversation about our kids and depression. And then we listened to a song about my son. And it's like I've kind of had this kind of special thing with George ever since then. Kind of like that was this moment that we had something terrible in common. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I'll use that sometime in Washington, D.C. to talk about the power of the songwriters. You know, the artists are singing our lives. Mm-hmm. You know, and in some moments I'll say, here's a song George Strait sang about my son's depression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Music heals, music saves. It's a universal language. Getting emotional over here with this story. You touched on Congress. You've spoken to Congress several times on behalf of NSAI, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's such a rabbit hole. You know, when the world went digital and the internet came along, people don't understand. The internet destroyed music in every way. You know, it was much more organic, and it was human beings sitting in front of microphones and making music. And then you would have a product that would go out into the world shrink-wrapped, and people would save their lunch money to buy it. You know, it wasn't that it became an antiquated product. We always say it wasn't like the people that were making whips for the horse and buggies, and then they invented the automobile, and then your business is obsolete. No, our product was being consumed at the highest rate it had ever been consumed, at the highest price point it had ever been consumed. And the internet came along, and because of federal regulations, we couldn't stop it, and the government was allowed streaming services to give the music away for free. Literally, there were regulations where we couldn't stop that from happening. So the first thing that happened was you devalue music. Instead of $15 for a CD at the store or 99 cents per song on iTunes, we're going to give it to you for free on your phone. And within a few years, all album sales evaporated, which amounted to 30 to 40% of our income. And we lost Nashville. The Nashville Songwriters Association at one point estimated that Nashville lost 80% of the professional songwriters in the business. The business shrank, and it was almost over. So we began this very slow David and Goliath process, fighting against Google, fighting against the federal government to change the laws in a way that we could revalue our copyright. We're still fighting it. We're fighting it every day. It's whack-a-mole. They will absolutely take the music for free if they can, but we passed a bill, took us 6 years to pass a bill called the Music Modernization Act. Again, it was dead 1,000 times. And I would have a writer say, is there hope? Does it look good? And I'm thinking, we're screwed. This is not going good. And I would say, we're working on it. I mean, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You'd say all the stuff, right? And then I'd go to Washington and just get my hand slapped by the Department of Justice or the White House or whatever, because Google has 250 full-time lobbyists at any given time on Capitol Hill. And really, the songwriters have the Nashville Songwriters Association. Yeah. There's really nothing that powerful in L.A. working towards
Seriously,
it.
David.
It literally, it's the Nashville Songwriters Association. That's all that to say that we've had wins in recent days. We've raised the rate. It's a lot more hopeful than it used to be, but it is an every day, every week, every year struggle. And Spotify just now pulled something shady within the last 10 days to where they're manipulating a loophole to lower the rates.
Well, thank you for being an advocate on behalf of all songwriters, because got to fight the hard fight. It's a long battle, but appreciate it. Going back to Tim Mcgraw and NSAI, I came to the awards last year, and Tim said it all begins with a songwriter. There is no music without the songwriter. So thank you guys for what you do. Now, when you're not working, because I know you're kind of always working, hey, this is an idea, but what do you like to do? How do you relax? You hang out with your family? What do you like to fish? What do we do, guys? Do we even know what the word relax means, I should say?
I've got a back porch that I love. That's next to the Cumberland River that faces west. And, without sounding too much like a heathen, it's kind of my church. And sometimes, it does include bourbon. But I sit out there a lot and work on ideas for writing.
You work to relax, is what you just said.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's not work, and that's the weird thing about what we do. We don't have bankers hours. We don't have hours at all. We have there's kind of a set time you show up, but you leave whenever you collectively in the room decide, okay, we're out of steam today, let's come back, or you finish it or whatever. But you go home, and you're still, like what Lee went through with his son. I mean, I've had moments like that too that have affected me. I've written things about relationships that didn't last for me, and songs about my old man, and just because that's what resonates with people, things that are true. And it doesn't have to even be their truth. They recognize them when they're hearing the truth. And I mean, I haven't even heard the song, but talking about your son, I already know you put all your heart in that, and never saw a dollar sign when you were writing it. It's interesting. Quincy Jones, one of his great quotes was, "When money's in the room, God walks out." And I find that to be an incredibly profound thought, actually, for everybody. If you're trying to create something, money will kill your creativity. It'll kill the heart, and so don't talk about singles. Don't talk about all this kind of stuff when we're writing. Let's just talk about the idea and get to the bottom of the idea and worry about the rest later. And it's requires discipline, I think, to do that, because I mean, most of the time we go through varying stages of like this roller coaster, and whoa, this is great, it's never going to end. Then, oh my God, I'll never have another hit. And then, oh, this is great. And then, oh my God, I'm never going to have another. It just, and I mean, you've been married a long time. I mean, it takes a special person to ride that roller coaster. And then if you have children, I have a daughter who's my hero, and she lives out in the Bay Area. But I don't know. I don't really do a lot. I like hanging out with friends. I feel like I've learned a lot from younger writers. I go to bed early, so
yeah. But sometimes you'll get that idea at 3 a.m. and you got to get up. And Where's your favorite place to eat in Nashville?
Oh, geez, we just a couple of my buddies from Smack and I went to this place called Halls
Mm-hmm.
last night. Have you been
It's
there?
pretty good.
Yes, it's incredible.
That place is amazing.
Yeah.
I just like, whoa, we were looking at each other like, man, you could actually take a woman to this
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. But I also love going over to Blue Moon Grill.
Mm-hmm.
They're about ready to, they just opened up again. That's, it's decent food, but you go there for the hang.
The atmosphere,
It's kind of
sunshine.
an escape.
Yeah.
There's a place called Burger and Grain in the Nations that
Mhm.
my buddy Steve Markland, Andy Albert, and I discovered recently. That's a great place. I couldn't believe how good it was.
Yeah.
The title's deceiving. It's more than burgers.
Well, I
That's
think
a great place.
May is National Burger Month, so
Yeah.
we'll have to go give it a try.
There you go.
Lee, how about you? When you're not working, what do you like to do, and where is your favorite place to eat in Nashville?
Oh, favorite place to eat is a place that's been open a little over a year in the Gulch called Luago.
Mm-hmm. I love that
It's
place.
an incredible couple from Brooklyn, the Scottos. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Italian. I don't know. I feel like we have a job that other people do as a hobby.
Yeah.
So there is it's its own escape. So it's like when you're on that back porch, or when you're, I don't know, whatever you're doing, you're never not aware of ideas and I'm a kid of the 70s. I love television. When people were saying kids watch too much television, you watch too much television, I was just always like, I love television. I love well-written television, and movies. It's hard to find well-written movies. So I like that. We have 4 kids. We've been doing that for so long. The youngest just graduated high school, so that's been its own just meat grinder.
Well, congrats. You're almost done.
No, they're killing us slowly though, because like the youngest today it's her 4th day in Nice, France. She's doing a fully immersed French program, staying with strangers in a host program on the other side of the world, drinking Aperol spritzes because you can drink at any age.
Wow.
And, she's living her best life with a bunch of kids from Belgium. So it's like, what, you're not relaxed enough to do anything. You're sitting there going, oh my God, has she been kidnapped by ISIS? I don't
Liam
know.
Neeson, gotta go,
So you're still parenting and doing that kind of stuff. But like I said, even that back porch, with your buddies, you're sitting there hoping that somebody says an idea and doesn't realize it.
You're always ready. Yesterday, I interviewed Doug Gray of Marshall Tucker Band, and he was telling me how he would write lyrics on a Burger King bag in the car. It's just 24/7. He can't plan a time to be creative. And when I interviewed him, it was a phoner. He was on his porch in Carolina looking at the water, and he said that was where he did his best thinking. So got to get quiet sometimes to just really hear the thoughts that are going on in your head.
I tell people all the time, if you're talking to your songwriter buddy and the world has ended and the girl has left you and you just found out you have cancer and the dog died and the car won't start and the roof's leaking, in the middle of your pouring out your soul and it's the worst day of your life, that songwriter's going to go, what was that last thing you just said? Oh, I'm sorry, continue. They just heard something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you joke about like if somebody's went through a divorce or something, everybody wants to write with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark and funny.
I have a story I tell in Writers' Rounds where my oldest, he ended up taking this trip to Europe because he was chasing this girl and they were going to backpack for the summer, and he made it 3 days and it was a disaster, and she left him for some French boy, and it's the middle of the night and he calls and he's lost and his card's not working and we don't know where he is and he's upset, and then he tells me what happened and I just said, wow, this is just this crazy heartbreak. Like, this girl has ditched you for a French guy in middle of nowhere France. And I swear to you, I said, tell me everything she said.
Line by line.
Tell me everything she said. And my wife's going, oh my God, what are you doing? I'm like, just give me a second. This is magic.
That is funny. That is funny.
Hall of Famer Mike Reed loves to tell a story. He had a bunch of Millsap number ones. And Mike is a former football player and like a huge human, really kind of a massive human. And he's married to this little woman who's like 5'4", Susie. And he tells a story. He says, we were having an argument one night, and I'm looking down at her, and she's just like sticking her finger in my chest and going, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm living with a stranger in this house. And he said, oh yeah, hold on one second, I'll be right back. He goes in another room, and he wrote that song by himself.
That is funny.
And he said she's been picking fights with him ever since, trying to come up with new ideas.
Hey, greater good, it's for the greater good. That's funny. Hilarious. So what advice do you guys have for either your younger self when you were 20 years old or for an aspiring songwriter moving to Music City? What would you tell them? What would you tell yourself?
Well, you couldn't have told younger me anything. So
that's probably the best advice right there.
Probably you're going to have to figure out what we tell the kids. I mean, I tell them, it doesn't matter what you tell them because you're going to have to figure out your own path. I'll say you're going to have to decide how bad you want it. It's going to be so much harder than you realize it is. Mm-hmm. And if quitting is an option, then you just need to do something else. If you can see yourself doing anything else, just do that. Because if there's a plan B, that's what you'll do. It's absolutely how bad do you want it. And most just don't want it bad enough. You don't want it bad enough to leave and come. And then of the ones that come, I would love to know the percentages of the one that have the stomach for it. I spoke one time at Belmont, and it kind of one of these things where I guess the kids have to, as part of their grade, they'll have somebody come and give a speech to an open assembly, and the kids have to go and give credit for the class. So nobody's there really wanting to be there. They were very disrespectful, and I've never done it again because I was just kind of like, they were rude, and it was hundreds of kids, and they're just like with their phones on, blah, 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 and they're not paying attention. And they'd interviewed me, and I was just kind of, I didn't appreciate their crappy attitudes. And at the end, she says, is there anything you'd like to say? And I just said, this is hundreds of kids in this room. I said, I can tell looking at you right now that there aren't 5 people in here that have the stomach for this, so it's not going to matter what I say. You'll be gone in 2 years. And it's the only thing they heard. A hush fell over the room, and you saw people going, wait, what? What was that? And I left.
It's a mic drop moment.
Yep.
I was just about to say, I bet they heard that at the end. Wow. I wonder where those 5 kids are now. Are they still grinding?
Okay. The rest of them are doing something else.
Hey, that's what they needed to hear. How about you?
Well, I think there's a myth amongst a lot of people, especially when they first get here, and a lot of people that surround them, feel like it's who you know. And it's just not who you know. Now, I told that Tim story, but that's 30 years into something, and not planned. And the thing is if it wasn't a really good song, Tim wouldn't have texted saying, I love this song. So worrying about who you can meet and all this kind of stuff, I always tell young writers, all you have to do, the only thing you can do is concentrate on getting better at your craft. Because you can have a meeting with the most powerful people in the music business, but if you haven't got something that will blow those people away, it's a complete waste of time. And until you're at a level where people go, wow, that's really good. And it's a series of, I wrote countless shitty songs, and then okay songs, and then pretty good songs, and then maybe good songs, until one day somebody actually recorded one, I was floored. I don't know where that line happened. I don't know what the moment, exactly what that was, but at some point suddenly realized, okay, I'm in the game. Mm-hmm. And there's no shortcuts. And
I think that it's who you know is it's an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to Nashville, but it's all just political.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, well, buddy, if you're working third shift at the quick sack, it's political. Life's political. Whatever if you're a teacher at the school, it's political. Whatever you're going to do, the dynamic of your family is political. That is just a cop-out. Life is political. And I think that one thing that Nashville is it's relational. It's a small community, you know. Is it who you know? Well, it's a fraternity. I mean, we do life with each other, you know. If you want to do this, you're going to have to be in the fraternity, and that's going to take time. You know, you earn your seat at that table, you know. And then does it get easier? Okay, well, you still have to be better than everybody else in the world. Okay, no, you've still got to be great, and you've got to have something that they don't have, you know. And you have to know the people, you know. But to say I'm not going to do it because it's not what you know, it's who you know, that's nonsense in any profession. So don't use that as the crutch to not leave Kansas. You know, you've already failed.
I think who you know and relationship building are just two completely different things. Sure. You know, you guys have a relationship. It's not you guys know each other and you're using each other. You guys equally inspire each other. And
it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It takes, you know, for the greatest singer in the world, it took a minute for the stars to line up.
Mm-hmm. And even songwriters, I mean, Tennessee Whiskey, how long, you know, and Dolly Parton sat on I Will Always Love You for 20 years, turned down an Elvis cut until it found its home with Whitney. So you just truly never know.
You never know.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Is there anything that you guys would like to add that we didn't cover? Which, by the way, Mark, I'm going to see Tim Mcgraw tomorrow night at Bridgestone, so I'm hoping he plays your song, and if he does, I will film it for you. Are you going?
I am going.
Oh, well, great.
And it's actually the first time I'm ever going to see Tim play.
Are you kidding?
I've never seen Tim in concert.
And now he's playing your song the first time that you see him.
They invited me, and I thought, wow, okay, geez, all right, I'm going.
That is incredible.
And there's nothing like it in an arena. You stand there with 20,000 people and they're singing your song.
Oh my gosh!
No, that never is.
It's just the best feeling ever.
I bet.
Gosh,
so cool. Well, yeah. Anything you guys want to add that I did not
Thank you for having
cover? Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with y'all. 106.7.